feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you late Thursday evening. It's May 8th after the Wolves 117-93 Game 2 win over the Steph Curry-less Golden State Warriors. And coming up on today's show, it is again myself, Kyle Theige, and Britt Robson here to give our immediate reactions to Game 3. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. As I mentioned, I got to look at how I did on I did 4 picks yesterday, guys. I said Naz Reid more than 12.5 points. How did I do there? Nope. 8. Oh, no, that was plus minus was 18. He had 11 points. I had Jaden McDaniels less than 3.5 fouls. That was on there. I think I got that. That one I got right. Gobert more than 10.5 rebounds. 9. Didn't get that one. Jimmy Butler more than 6.5 made free throws. He only had 3. So I got one of 4. I got one of those 4 correct. I think these are fun to do. Even when you do lose, looking at the games and kind of picking and projecting how these games might play out. Obviously, for every NBA playoff game, they have a full slate going. So if you're following one of those series and you have a feel of, what player is going to have a big game or a smaller game, obviously there's options to do that. Prize Picks. It's a fun way to just play for $5. I'm sure by the time you listen to this, the Game 3 slate for Wolves Warriors will be up again. So you can put together your own lineup for Game 3. If you don't have a Prize Picks account yet, sign up with the promo code Dane, and your account will be credited with $50 when you place your first $5 lineup. All right. Immediate reactions to Game 2 coming up next. All right, guys, let's get into Game 2. Very different than Game 1. I want to just start by talking about what was different. What did the Wolves do either differently or more effectively in this game? Let's start with you, Britt.
Well, they moved the ball and they hit shots. I think that those were probably the big difference. Obviously, it was an offensive deficiency that lost them Game 1. Warriors defense had a lot to do with that. Warriors still played, I thought, hard on defense and relatively well. 32 assists, 33 assists, 12 turnovers is a nice ratio. Mike Conley had mentioned after Game 1 that one drive and kick oftentimes wasn't enough. Multiple drive and kicks were important. We saw quite a bit of that. In fact, it seemed to be part of their offense that the first drive and kick almost looked like it was the guy getting the ball on the kick, looked like he knew it wasn't his shot yet. And when I mentioned to Finch after the game, he said that this defense is really good at converting that first, covering that first kick. And so I think that was important that they followed through, moved the ball and hit shots. They hit their first 2 threes or hit 2 threes in like the first minute and a half. So the pressure of clanking the previous 2 games was off. They played free and easy, got up to a 13-point lead. And after that, I thought it was kind of a workmanlike win.
Yeah, it's when they do play faster and they move the ball. Every time I would have said that, those are the games where you see the offensive efficiency spike. And it did in this game. They had a 125 offensive rating after Game 1. They had a 93.6 offensive rating, which was, what those numbers mean contextually is 93.6 was their worst offensive efficiency game of the entire season. And 125 would be up there as one of the best. I guess just offensively first, Kyle, what did you see to be a differentiator there?
I'm going to go with Britt. I think hitting shots helped. The loudest pop of the night, despite in a game where Draymond Green gets a technical and there's a lot of bleep you Draymond, the loudest pop of the night in the crowd was when Jaden hit the first shot because it was a 3-pointer. And they're like, we didn't see that in the first 24 minutes of Game 1. And they did. They came out with the right energy. I liked Finch pregame talking about how someone asked him, like, what was the mood like the last couple of days? And like, it was actually kind of quiet. Right. And this isn't a quiet team. Like these guys aren't quiet guys. And for them to kind of workmanlike, like Britt said, and then just business-like, they knew that they dropped a really important game in Game 1, especially a game that Steph goes out in the second quarter. So I thought they did most of the things right. It got a little dicey there when it got down to 7 in the third quarter. Maybe we talk about that later because, again, I think they slipped a little bit and started turning the ball over and not getting back on defense in transition. But for the most part, I mean, I didn't even, if you were giving it a grade, I don't know about you guys, but like that was like maybe like a B- for me. Like I didn't think they played awesome, but they did what they needed to do. They knew they could not lose this game. They even up the series. They wake up tomorrow, they're minus 300 favorites. Like they did enough, but not to use meat on the bone again. I just thought there was a lot of stuff that they could clean up for game 3.
Yeah. So what would that be? What would have the difference if you wanted it to be an A grade versus a B-? Like what's that delta there?
I mean, this is bigger picture, like psychological, but like there's still not like a foot on the throat killer instinct. Like they were up, I think, 15 at half. They're up 17 at half. And it's like, I was talking to some people at halftime. If they come out in the first 4 minutes and they get this to 25, it's over, and you can rest some guys, and Kerr will pull the plug. We saw Kerr do it in game 5 against Houston. And instead, I think Golden State came out on an 8-0 run or a 10-0 run. And it's like those little things of Steve Kerr, and we'll get into this, is trying to throw shit at the wall. Like he played, this tonight had to be a record for most guys in an NBA game playing. Like
it weirdly reminded me of JJ Redick playing no bench guys.
Yeah.
In the Lakers. You know what I'm saying? Where you're
Yeah.
just like, I can't, normal isn't going to work here. We need
Right.
to careen.
Steve Kerr played 14 guys tonight, and Chris Finch played 13. And the Wolves were because they won the game kind of in a blowout fashion. But Steve Kerr's trying to find the right 5 guys that'll have a confidence. You saw with Kuminga tonight. But the Wolves, when they get those 12, 14-point leads, especially now when they go on the road, like you got to find a way to get it to 20, because that's kind of what was frustrating about game 1 is the Warriors have a really good defense. And I thought even tonight, Wolves score 117, but you saw the Warriors play such good defense on a string, but it is grueling for them to score. Like they have to manufacture points. And if you can avoid giving them free points in transition and giving them the ball in live ball turnovers, it's going to be so, their margin for error is so small, Golden State. You have to kind of keep that margin low.
For what was different, I mean, Golden State was different too. Obviously, they don't have Steph Curry. Buddy Hield is supposed to be the Steph Curry, but his game tonight was extremely different,
Right.
Than his game 1. And to Kyle's point, Kuminga, those were 2 of the things I had down for what was different for Golden State.
I think what was different is Kerr even dramatized this. Unfortunately, when they went to their bench, it was over. You know what I mean? They just don't have the juice. They don't have the juice off the bench. Jimmy Butler, 34 minutes, -4 for the game. Draymond, 30 minutes, -3. Pods, 33 minutes, +1. They were competitive without Curry a lot when, of course, that 10-point bulge halfway through the third quarter helped a lot of those plus minuses because their starters came out for that in the third quarter and made that. It turned out to be a 16-6 margin before I demarcated it from when Finch finally called a timeout. I thought it was a little late, but then they came out a different team. But the point is, the Wolves have Rudy Gobert's hand-eye coordination was awful tonight. It is amazing how much that careens back and forth between he can look fabulous and just dominate, and he can, and to the Wolves' credit, they were force-feeding him a lot. They were really looking to get him in a rhythm, and it got worse and worse. And then, of course, he made, I think it was 1 of 4 from the line or something. It was just one of those games where you knew that sometimes his body doesn't work right. And it's just crazy, but because sometimes it does. But so that's one thing. And then
Was that different than game 1?
it was different in terms of the fact that they were looking for him and he had chances.
I agree.
So I think that was, and then I think what was also different, obviously, is that they didn't have a bucket getter on the other side. I mean, Kuminga, sure, but Kuminga's in there with a bunch of guys. I bet you Kuminga was a minus regardless of his
-8.
Okay. And, the backup point guy was Spencer, who is a very, very hardworking scrub. He's the kind of guy you get out of a gym. And he was undressed out there first couple of times. So, I mean, it's the playoffs. You've just won a playoff game. You've won it by 24 points. I'm with Kyle, B-. It was not the kind of win that makes you feel better about this team in a vacuum in terms of like this Wolves
You said
team.
wasn't?
No,
Wasn't?
it didn't make it. It didn't make me feel better. They did play better than they did in game one, but they did not reach a level that was what I regard as where they showed in LA and what they showed for most of the last 6 weeks of the regular season. There was some individual stuff that was good. And as I said, I think the ball movement was good. I thought Jaden McDaniels had a great game. I mean, I can just pick and choose. But in terms of difference, I think the difference was to state the very obvious, Curry wasn't there and the Wolves played more together and with more purpose. But again, I keep back to workmanlike is a good word because it was business. They were serious. They weren't clowning. But they don't have the killer instinct, and they did not play exceptionally well. They beat an obviously hobbled team that is missing, not only the face of the franchise, but the source of their offense and an underrated defender who just does a lot of things for them.
I don't think the Warriors offense was as different as you would think it would be missing Steph Curry, who is a unicorn,
Sure.
But they were running a lot of the same stuff and just using Buddy Hield as Steph Curry, and Buddy Hield was not as effective as he was in game one, where he was first half Buddy Hield, second half Steph Curry of that game.
Right.
I do think if I'm a Warriors coach or Warriors fan, I do take some solace in what Kuminga was able to do. I think if you're trying to tell yourself a story, even how rough that was for the Warriors, trying to tell yourself a story about how they win a game in this series until Steph comes back, it would probably include Kuminga being able to do this. Right? I mean, you mentioned Kuminga earlier, Kyle. Like that at least seems like it gives them some juice, some offensive pop, a guy who can do things for them offensively that the other 14 guys who played can't,
I mean, not to get too personal here, but without Steph, the Warriors, the option Steve Kerr has is very reminiscent right now to your fridge, right? Like you don't have any food because you've been traveling. So I do think the Kuminga stuff, when you said it, I kind of was just like, I don't know. Like Kuminga, when he got his points, he's like a really talented player that has basically been a DNP when they're at full strength. So he did get 18 points tonight. He was, I think, at 1.8 for 8. Yeah. I don't think he has ever understood the Warriors system. So I think sometimes he gets it just in a lot of isolation. And again, at this point, Steve Kerr's like, we have no food. Like, we got to eat. So I do think, they started Quentin Post tonight, which I was like, oh, that's interesting. He played 3 minutes. Got the Jackson Hayes treatment. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Nope, not a good idea. So I would imagine that Kuminga has to play just to give them some juice, like you said. But I didn't necessarily think his minutes were great. But, when you look at their bench, their two big bench guys were him and Trace Jackson Davis. And I think Trace Jackson Davis like a minus 15, even though he had 15 points. So Steve Kerr said it post game, I just played 14 guys to see who could find a rhythm. And that might just be to the B- thing. Like the Wolves might not ever play an A game in this because the Warriors defense is so good. But I just keep looking at if the Wolves play the type of defense that they've kind of become synonymous for and they don't turn the ball over, that alone should be enough because I don't think the Warriors can score 100 points.
Yeah, I just think Kuminga is part of the pathway to replace some Curry for them because there are just things that he can do that the other players there can't. I mean, I know he's been a guy who's really, really been piled on, but there's a flicker there, I think, for them. And so from the Wolves' perspective, you gotta consider that, going into the next game. And I don't think he was super accounted for in this game. Another difference was Nikhil in this game, Britt. He really had, honestly, have been struggling the entirety of the playoffs. He came into this one averaging 5 points, 1 rebound and 2 assists per game in the playoffs. while only making 5 of his 25 threes. But in this game, he has, what does he finish with? 20 points. Only Julius Randle outscored him. He was 4 of 6 from 3 and 3 of 7 from 2. He looked like the Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who was extremely consistent during the regular season, though this was the first time he's played that way pretty much this entire postseason.
I would agree with that. Here's what I would say. First of all, I'm empathetic to the Kuminga argument because it makes sense. He was on a heater and he looked good. Those were confident shots, which I think has been one of the issues. He's been in the doghouse. And so I think getting into a rhythm where he feels like he'll make himself comfortable, even if the environment isn't totally comfortable for him yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to tell you, I'm not a Kuminga fan. I've never been a Kuminga fan. I just think that he doesn't know how to play well with others. And the Warriors have a system where Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler sacrifice for themselves.
Right.
Kuminga's not a sacrificer. So I think that he can go out and get you points. It's kind of like maybe the Julius Randle experience of November or something where, you'll get points, but will everybody feel good about it? Will you get some momentum going? I don't know. I mean, does that mean that Post is better than Kuminga or that broken Moody is better than Kuminga? No, I mean, I don't know what happened to Moody. He had 3 or 4 air balls tonight and he only had like 6 shots. So they're hurting. I mean, Kyle is right. You appreciate the breadth of Curry's game, how he enables others both by everybody suddenly has a lot more spacing than they would otherwise. And also he's getting them looks through his passing and through his, hockey assists. He sets a tone that is a team tone. And when you lose a guy like that, I thought Jimmy Butler did a really good job with what he had to deal with. He was calm and measured, which I think is what you need from, the Warriors. The more I've seen them, especially with Butler, they are a system team. They are a team that runs their stuff at both ends of the court. And I think they're very well coached. So there is that, and they do play defense, but the Wolves didn't play that well, and they won by 24. And, if you look at the macro view from, the cheap seats, you say they don't have their best player and they're trying really hard, but maybe the home court advantage will do something for them. Something will have to be flipped, or the Wolves will have to go into another funk to lose to a Curryless team. And both are possible.
Let me throw it back to Britt on this Nickeil thing, because 48 hours ago, I looked you in the eyes and I was like, at what point do you maybe pull the plug and put Terrence in, right? And you looked at me like I was crazy. And it was a reminder of like, we got really good stuff yesterday at Falling Knife from Jim Pete about Chris Finch and just what he does behind the scenes to make these guys comfortable. And I think Nickeil has played bad playoff basketball for the first 6 games. And tonight he was fantastic. And I just think it's another one of those times where Chris Finch is just going to trust a guy a little more than any of us would. And I mean, what did you think about Nickeil tonight? Because he kind of not only hit those threes, but then he took Trace Jackson-Davis off the bounce that one time, got to the rim. His finishing was better. He just kind of looked like that confident, fearless Nickeil that I don't think we've seen so far in the postseason.
I agree. I think that Nickeil seems to be modeled a little bit more after Mike Conley than after his 2 benchmates, Dante and Nas, in terms of the fact that they're catalysts. I mean, they go in and boom, they're in the game. Whereas Nickeil is a cocker, a gap filler, a guy that does things that elevate,
like Christian Brown
overall. Yeah. So, I mean, it is, one of those things where I think that Nikhil played a really good game. I don't feel like he was a difference maker. I do think it was more that, all right, Nikhil is back to being who he is, and that is something that we can all relax with now. I'll tell you that the guy, quite frankly, I can't believe how hard I am on him when I watch him. I mean, Julius Randle wound up.
Hold on. We got a whole.
Okay,
we'll do a
okay.
whole
All
Julius
right,
Randle
all
thing.
right.
Today's show is brought to you by Coldwell Banker and Adriana Lanick. And if you are in the market for buying or selling a home, we would love it if you reached out to Adriana at Coldwell Banker Realty. You can do that by visiting her website, thedancingrealtor.com, or you can call or text her at 715-304-9920 to book a strategy session. As we've been telling you all year, if you do book a strategy session, you will be entered to win some free Wolves tickets. I think that will be for next season at this point. But at some point this summer, if you are in the buying or selling process of a home, do reach out to Adriana and start the process with a realtor. Understand what it is and where it is that you need help. And like I said, mention this podcast and get entered to win a pair of free Timberwolves tickets. That's thedancingrealtor.com, which is in the show notes, or you can call or text at 715-304-9920 to book a free strategy session. All right, I was going to continue going to the bench, but let's get into Randle. I was sitting next to you, and you were making groaning noises a lot.
I couldn't believe how long he held the ball for most of the first half. Again, maybe some of it is getting, it's an aesthetics argument. It is obviously something where the way he plays basketball is not beautiful basketball to me. But also it kind of gets back to what we were saying, what Conley said about the offense, what I just said about the offense. Randle is not usually the guy that does the second drive and kick. He'll do the first drive and kick or whatever, if he does that. And it just always feels like his assists are owned by him more than anyone else's assists on the team. It's not like it's in the flow, but usually it's not a regular flow. It's like Julius Randle has lifted the rock from the river and now it's flowing and now he'll put the rock down. It just doesn't feel like, all right, everybody's on the raft and here we go and there are no rocks.
He was putting the rock in the bucket today.
And it gets back to, at some point in time, you complain about somebody and then you look down and you see they have 10 assists at the end of the third quarter. You got to say, all right, look. And
I don't like these assists.
Yeah.
But.
Well, and they are to be, it is I retain my bias, but
I
the way the NBA runs assists now, what that means is he does pass the people who drive through four people to score, as do many other players. But it is one of those things where, look, the guy, they were plus 17 in his 33 minutes on the floor. He scored 24 points. Had 11 assists
I'm
and 7
looking forward
rebounds.
to find a way that you're going to make this negative.
No. There's nothing negative about that line. And just because my eye test, I have sore eyes from it, doesn't mean it wasn't effective basketball.
I do get that part of it, because clearly the best version of this offense is swing, and they're moving around in that.
And there are times where I'm overjoyed that I get to praise him honestly. That's the thing. I acknowledge that he's playing well and he's good for the team, but you have to be honest. You're here talking about what you see and what you feel. And so what I have to say is when the Wolves are playing really, really well, Julius Randle plays differently than he played tonight, I think.
I thought this was the best version of Julius Randle. I thought this was the exact version.
You think it was
that they
March
need?
and April?
I do.
Okay.
And for me, what is big that I've been talking about a lot is being diligent about what matchups he's attacking.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of had to shuffle through who and how they were guarding,
right?
Because they start post and he comes out, and Everything is a little bit different in how they were arranging their defensive matchups. But my biggest thing with Randle is, I mean, in this matchup, if it's Draymond Green and one-on-one, don't go at it. If it's another one, go quick. And I do think at the beginning of the game, he was being deliberate. He was going quick. There was a quickness to the decision making. There were times for sure, and that's where the groans came in. And I get it, like where it's like, okay, ping, 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 and then it gets to him, and he kind of stands up and he's reading it and assessing it. I just do think that is part of his game.
Yes.
And it is part of being a point forward on this team. His job is not always to, in the midst of the swing, continue it moving on the swing. He is the one in the midst of the swing to punch the gap. You know, he has more of that responsibility, which is a second decision to make in that spot. I think that slows down his thinking at times, but I thought, I mean, what are we, 7 games into the playoffs now? Julius Randle's kind of put together 5 gems, both game ones. I guess to me, I don't know, maybe gem is a little high on that, but 5 very good games in both of the game ones, in the Lakers series and game 1 of this series were rough from him, but they need him to be an innings eater for this team, particularly, which we'll get to, with Anthony Edwards really struggling in the series.
This is courtesy of Alan Horton, but in 7 postseason games now, Julius is averaging 36 minutes a game, 22 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. He's shooting 50% from the field, 34% from 3, which I think is kind of an eye-opener, 88% from the free throw line. He's getting to the line 6 attempts a game. I'm just going to side with Britt because I don't really look at the box score during the game. I'm just kind of like locked in, emotional. And eye test wise, I came away thinking like that was a B- game from Julius. And then it's like, oh yeah, 24, 11, and 7 with only 2 turnovers. I think it's just sometimes style of play more than they think. And I think the one other thing that
cup of tea either.
I think the one other thing that
you guys are saying
stood out is that, again, this is not like a Julius thing because Ant is like the captain of complaining about a foul and not getting back in transition. But I remember when Kuminga got that transition bucket and Finch, I mean, Finch had some of the worst body language of all time because he was so mad at those guys. But that's when he like subbed Julius out, and then Julius kind of lost it on the sidelines for a minute there. So I think that kind of factored into my head too, that he was heated going back with Elson Turner being like, and then Finch put him right back in. But big picture going into this, again, I keep bringing this up, but when you did that pod with the guy that covered the Knicks after the Cat trade, it was like, hey, Julius is underrated. We loved him, but get ready for playoff Julius. And that at some point now, 7 games with those numbers and 5 of them been really good. Like he's kind of put that narrative to the side. Like he has been a key catalyst in helping this team get to where they are right now.
Yeah, I mean, he can fall into his own traps, and they happen to be traps that are particularly bothersome to us in the way that he gets there. And it isn't aesthetically your cup of tea. It is Chris Finch's cup of tea,
which is
and he loves the flavor of it. And like it is, and Julius is doing what Finch wants him to do, and he did that tonight. And I mean, this was the process that we both were going through at the beginning of the season. We were talking about this all the time. What shifted for me in my thinking was I was like, stop thinking about what you think about this, and put it through the lens or the filter of what you understand Finch wants out of it. And I do think I've come to better understand what it is that Finch wants out of it. And it's pretty much exactly this. It's the quote unquote flirting with the triple double. It's the getting to the middle of the floor. I so wish he had a right hand so he didn't have to kick it out every single time. But if he's drawing him in against a subpar defender, it's pretty consistently led to a combination of both scoring and playmaking. And I thought you got that again tonight.
On that Julius sub out, do you guys remember now? Remember you see him on the sideline? He was kind of.
I actually didn't. I haven't seen that, but somebody
he was heated. I think Finch subbed him out at the 8:42 mark of the third. Puts Nas in. They're up 13. It gets to 7, right? And that's like the infamous timeout at 7. He puts Julius back in 62-55, 6:57, and then they just went on a run, right, to finish the third quarter. And then when asked about it post game, I don't remember the exact words, but you could tell when they asked him like, what happened on that moment when you subbed Julius out? It kind of seemed like you were benching him for a second, and Finch collected himself because he does love Julius and was like, I just thought he needed a minute to collect himself, and he did. It was good coaching. It was a good response from Randle, and then they came out, and I think they went on like a 12-2 run. A lot of it led by Nasrid 3, Julius assist, Dante 3, Julius assist. So kind of a microcosm of how their relationship works. But I thought Finch said, you didn't get back, sit down, minute later, you're in, and they went on a run.
And Randle spoke at length about that in the post game. He was asked about that, and he said, he challenges me, and I was really hot. He challenges me even when I'm hot in the moment. And he gave Mike Conley and Joe Ingles credit for calming him down. He said, hearing me out and then calming me down. But I like the fact that he always challenges me. I like the fact that he coaches me tough. I don't like it sometimes in the moment, but when it happens, I just try to gather myself and understand what he's trying to do and what he wants out of me. So I can go back in the game with the right frame of mind. And he said, these two have a relationship that has made a huge difference. And one of the ways I try to acknowledge my bias is to know one of my favorite things of what's happened with this Wolves team this year is the diversification of their offense. And that just doesn't happen without him on the team. I mean, you need that bang, bang, bang body and that little turnaround while Ant catches his breath on the perimeter. And instead of having Cat turn over the ball at the top of the key or Ant turn over the ball at the top of the key, which I don't think is very aesthetically pleasing either, you have Randle, going 1-on-4 and then dishing out or going through 2 of those 4 and getting fouled or getting a layup. That is a wonderful counterpunch. That is, if you're geared to stop Ant, if you're geared to stop ball movement, if you're geared to stop the drive and kick, all of a sudden, your defense has to confront the fact that you're going to have to double down for a while. Or you're going to have to rotate for a guy rather than movement. And that tilts your defense. And then the Wolves can get back to what they were doing. That diversification of the offense is very important. And so I like it a lot better when it's thrown in my face more dramatically than it was tonight. It's like, all right, the Wolves are doing this and they're countering that now. And here comes Julius doing his thing. Right. It was not laid out quite so well this time, but I'd be a fool not to acknowledge that he's become a really important member of this team. Not only that, but I do think they lose something if he's not there, which is something I was certainly prepared to do right through the trading deadline. And he's become valuable for things that are not replicable on this roster.
Who else other than Ant is breaking the paint and getting in there and
getting
kicking
their own bucket?
Honestly, who else? There's no one. Not Mike Conley's not doing that.
Right.
Dante DiVincenzo's not doing that. Nikhil's not doing that.
Nas is the closest you can get to it, and Nas needs certain conditions.
They never run, which whatever. I would like to see more of that run for Nas, but they don't. They never. Nas is always, if he's going, it's like off of a curl within an action. Julius is the only other. You can give him the ball in his spot. He can go and create for himself and create for others. I will say, rewatching the game 1, it really did. I think Julius was the biggest culprit in bad offense translating over to the defensive side poorly. If you go and you watch when he missed shots in game 1, what happened on the other side of the floor? Oftentimes he made a game plan mistake on the other side. Again, it's kind of like with Rudy, right?
Right.
Rudy fumbles, a pass. It makes it more likely that the next pass is going to be fumbled.
And it also makes it more likely that he will commit an over-aggressive foul on defense and think he didn't foul.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I just think that's if I'm Julius Randle and I'm looking at this and being like, all right, I've played 7 games and 5 of them have been 5 of my best playoff games of my career. I am thinking in my head though of like, hey, if a game 7, comes around, I can't, or some sort of closeout game, it's got to be the good one. And as much as I'm praising him right now, I don't have a lot of confidence that if things start going rough in a game 7 or any of these games, that he will be able to sort of like resurrect himself out of that. It does often with him, probably in part because of the mood and some of those sort of things and frustration. The body language gets bad and it just kind of spills over. I think both things can be true. We can have like a healthy fear of that,
right?
Given how much we saw it over the course of the season, while also acknowledging he's been one of the best players in the whole playoffs for this team.
As a sicko, though, I want to see the next bad chunk of time for Julius and see how he responds. Because again, I love this. I just love like the human element, the management, the coaching of it. And there was a bad body language moment tonight, and I thought Finch kind of coached him out of it. And then it led to it basically broke the game open. Now, did he fix the imperfections of Julius Randle's game? And as a human, probably not in 1 60-second sub out, sub in, but it'll be interesting to see, because again, tonight, that was one of the moments that you just said that kind of scare you because you've seen it happen so many times over the regular season. And I think to Finch's credit, he just basically coached it out of him. He said, sit down, collect yourself, go back in there. And then he was kind of the impetus to kind of close the game out.
If Julius has had 5 of his 7 games have been really good, what's Jaden? 6?
9. He's been awesome.
I mean, that's just what I found myself putting in my notes a couple times. Was just like, not only was he good tonight, he's just been excellent in these playoffs.
He's calm.
Isn't that crazy though? Like,
I mean, he is somebody who's taking his time to dismantle defenders as he scores. I mean, he's hitting floaters, he's hitting bankers, he's chasing down rebounds, and 3 blocks, 3 steals tonight. Incidentally, guarding Jimmy Butler, who after guarding Steph Curry, I mean, those are 2 very, very different players. And when he gets switched on to somebody else, it almost isn't fair. I mean, there was one play. Who was it that was, remember, like 6 or 7 different dekes one way or another, and he just stayed down?
I was
and then he ran at
that. That was Jimmy. And I think it was Jimmy.
Oh, was it Jimmy? Oh, that's right. It was
Jimmy likes to drive into the paint and then do that herky-jerky 1, 2, 3. And again, for Jaden, it helps that he's 6'10" and is like the inflatable tube man at the car dealership.
And
but
he
like
stayed away from
down
him
the whole time
until the end.
Yeah, it was 6. Like I think Britt's right. It was 6 pump fakes, and then by that time, Jimmy's not going to force a shot because he's really smart. So then he kicked it out. But then he did that. Jimmy did that to Rudy, and he got Rudy on the first pump, right? And he got to the line.
But he did block a shot. I think it was Jimmy who they did the thing, and he closed out on Jimmy so fast that he got a piece of it. And
at the beginning of the game, right away. Yeah.
And so I just think that what is fascinating, because it's not the personality type. He's sullen by nature, and
wasn't pumped about having to go to the podium for his post-game media.
Put his headphones right conveniently just next to his ears in case he needed to put his headphones
in the locker room. They're like, Jaden, you got the podium, and he's just like,
yeah. Well, then that makes sense. But what he is doing is taking what the game gives him on offense and forcing the defense to take what he's giving them. And that is being aggressive in changing the game in what you do best, and being having a perspective, a kind of a not unaggressive, but an alert, judicious way of looking at how do I score here. And I mean, the easy answer is he's just making a lot of right decisions, and that's just mature player. I thought, he's a guy, you look at Randle's stat line, you go, oh, I didn't expect that. You see, Jaden is 16, 1 and 2, or actually 16, 2 and 0. Yeah. And you think, oh, and 16, yet, plus 20 in 33 minutes and, 1 turnover.
It's
3
because
steals, 3
You
blocks.
got to include the one foul because that's the thing for me that always is like,
He is one of the very best defenders in the entire NBA. And I feel like that just isn't getting talked about enough or
he is
recognized
improved.
enough.
That's the thing that is crazy.
He's better. He's better than
He's
he was when
much
he made
better
all,
than he was last year. I will tell you that.
Fouling.
He
the
got
fouling is
overrated
done.
last year, and he is underrated now.
I really do try to come from this from like a neutral standpoint and
Right.
assessing of what I'm seeing versus what I'm saying. I watch a lot of the rest of the league, and I watch the Thunder all the time, right? You guys know I'm obsessed with the Thunder. Like, you can't tell me that there's this huge gap in defensive impact between Lou Dort and Jaden McDaniels. And I love Lou Dort.
Right.
It's a little bit different. But what Jaden is doing in this series too is highlighting defensive versatility.
Right.
Curry. All right, now you're chasing. Okay, now you're on Butler. Now you're back in a traditional, man-to-man, maybe pick and roll, screen navigation.
Right.
Okay, now you're on Buddy Hield, and now we're going back to
switching,
chasing.
right.
I mean, it is not to mention what she isn't doing very much in this series because he has been on the ball. He's also an elite secondary rim protector.
Right.
Coming over as a low man. It's what you're watching these games on TNT and stuff, or even taking more of the national media stuff in, and I just feel like it is slept on. He did the Luka. I mean, Luka, he did an excellent job on, I thought, for so much of that series, and now he's just a problem for whoever it is that he has to guard, whatever archetype of offensive player. He's averaging 16 points a game in these playoffs. But the thing for me is still that this guy is absolutely incredible, even compared to the other most incredible perimeter defenders in the rest of the league.
he did have 3 blocks and 3 steals, like Britt said. And this is like a player comp thing. I just think Jaden's defense is closer to Rudy Gobert than it is to Lou Dort in the sense that it's not the viral clips. It's all this other stuff. Like you just said, screen navigation. You don't really clip those for clout, right? Like it's all their stuff. It's even like when the defense does kind of collapse because someone missed an assignment and then Jaden has to fly out, like his contests, like he makes that effort to contest a shot on Buddy Hield and Moses Moody when maybe that wasn't his assignment on the rotation. Or his defense, I kind of think that was perfectly put. I do think his defense last year was like kind of low key overrated. I mean, he did make all defensive second team, but this year, I mean, it's got to be one of the most underrated parts of his game and of this team is just you can just put him on. When you think about the best defenders in the league, it's like, hey, can you go guard Luka tonight, Jimmy Butler tomorrow, Steph the next day, and then maybe give us 6 minutes against Jokic? And Jaden just does that.
And I think I know why. One of the reasons, anyway, he is underrated is because he's not physicality. He doesn't stand people up. What he does is he's incredibly lean. He's kind of like, I think Kevin Durant is a very underrated defender. I think he's a rich man's Kevin Durant on defense. Somebody who's really, really long and spidery and really, really supple in the way he can move in and out of coverage. He can be up on somebody. He can give them space to close out later. He has a bandwidth that isn't just, I mean, Lou Dort, it's a nail and a hammer, you know. I will stop this person in their tracks. And when you can do that to Anthony Edwards, then you get noticed, you know.
I literally think sometimes the public perception of what makes a better defender is literally the louder people.
Yes, exactly.
Like clap and scream and that's just not Jaden's personality.
Right.
Like whatsoever. He's very quiet, but he is equally as committed to defense as any star defender is in the league. And doing so when you do have a lot of the other really good defenders in the league do not have an offensive bag. They can't give you 16 a game consistently. And he's also doing that. I mean, anytime it's like pods or someone short or like Moody, Peyton, whatever, people smaller than him, he is actively seeking that scoring over them consistently. And you feel great about it. when he takes that first dribble from the corner, because you're like, all right, that guy's about 7 inches shorter than him. Like if he gets to 8, like he's pulling that and he makes that little pull up at a very, very high clip, right? You know, 8 feet from the basket. You had something else?
Yeah, I was just going to turn in because we kind of organically created this new game. So at last pod, we didn't really mention the Steph injury till about 55 minutes. So tonight we should mention that Ant rolled his ankle. And did the thing again where it's like, oh no, he's dead. And then it's like, oh, just kidding, he's back at halftime. Although I thought it was interesting post-game that Finch said this time he thought that he was going to have to game plan for Ant not coming back. Like he thought it was serious. Ant came back. But we did this game now of like, hey, how many good games has Julius played in the playoffs? And how many good games has Jaden played so far in the playoffs? Of the 7 games they've played, I'm just curious, how many good games do you think Ant has had in the playoffs?
3 stinkers in a row.
You want the high bar? Or do you want
whatever you take it wherever you want to go?
I mean, judging by what you expect from Ant, I'd say maybe 2, maybe 3 good games. The last 3 have been rough, right? I mean,
Game 1 of the Lakers series, game 3 of the Lakers series, and game 4. The 2 clutch ones were 3
okay,
and 4,
3 and 4,
right?
you're right. And game 1, I'm trying to remember if he was good in
They
game
just
1.
played.
He had 22, 9 assists, and 8 rebounds.
Okay, well, there you go. I mean, again, some of that is it probably look. And what we have not seen is Ant drag the team forward, except 3 and 4. I would totally agree with you on 3 and 4.
In the fourth,
Yeah.
fourth quarter.
Yeah. I mean, it is a delicious feeling when all of a sudden Ant hits a 3, then goes in and goes through 4 people for a layup, gets a steal, dishes for another one, starts to egg on the crowd, starts to put the holster in and steal a Westbrook and, do some other stuff. But that buoyancy, he can't fake it. He knows he can't fake it. And we don't see it a lot in the last 3 games because he hasn't enough justification to do it.
Well, and I also don't think he has enough justification for it to be as poor as it's been these first 2 games. So I'm going to spin this in a positive way. Like I don't see the Warriors to be doing something so complicated that he can't figure out, or the way they're guarding him is so difficult and loaded up and this and that. I think he's sufficiently out of rhythm. I think it's just that, missed a bunch of threes in game 5 against the Lakers, missed a bunch last night. Like the 3-point shot has been his rhythm setter all season. He has struggled with finishing all year, struggled again tonight with that. He needs that 3 to find a rhythm, and he's an elite 3-point shooter. Like that's going to come back probably next round. And that's why I think this series is over. I think it's over. I think it's
you just came out of nowhere. I love that.
Holy shit. I think it's over. I think they're going to win in 5 because I think Ant has stunk. I think Rudy's been terrible. You guys all just called this a B- performance, and I largely agree with that. I don't think the Wolves have been getting much from their main pieces.
Right.
These Warriors team is limited. I really respect, I love Jimmy and Draymond and the caliber of it. There is a massive, massive chasm of talent going on right here. I don't think this Warriors team is going to be able to score over 100 points in many or any of these games. And I feel extremely confident that the players who are not playing well are going to start playing better and doing so in an offensive way. I just think it's going to be very difficult for the Warriors to win games in this series. I don't know. I mean, maybe they're willing. Obviously, I can be wrong about all these things. I'm just telling you, it's the same way I felt after the Lakers played all 5 of the starters for the whole second half. It was a desperation that they couldn't match, and the Wolves had more. Like they had more gas in the tank even than what they were doing. I feel the same thing right now. It's how I felt last year when they were playing the Mavs. It felt over right away. You could feel the gap and you could feel the problems and the issues that they didn't have answers to. Like, what is the case? that the Warriors are going to win one if Steph comes
I
back?
can tell you,
All right.
Kyle would probably stole his answer because I think the answer is pretty obvious. Chris Finch has said it all year. The biggest opposition is us.
Yeah, sure.
And I can see them feeling exactly the way you feel because it's a logical feeling. I think that's one of the reasons they played B- tonight. I think if they had to have played A- to win that game, they probably would have. But I do think the Warriors are much less talented, but unlike the Lakers, they play consistently hard.
Yeah.
And they have an idea of what they're doing. The Lakers are still, Luka's going to do some stuff. LeBron's going to do some stuff, and the rest of you guys get ready for Luka's passes. And that's the offense. You know, I mean, the Warriors.
What is the Warriors offense of this group? No Curry.
Well, this group with
That's
Jimmy.
what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, if Curry comes back, you know.
No. That's not what I said. What do they do offensively in
I
game
think
three?
they score off turnovers for one thing.
Okay.
I think that they hold the Wolves to like 90 to 95 points, and I think they win like 98 to 94. I think that's how they win. I think they get the fans behind them in Golden State. I think that Jimmy toys with Randle and/or Rudy. I think that Pods and Gary Payton hits shots from the corner. He was 0 for 2 tonight, played 13 minutes. I think that
I'll grant you Jimmy going off and doing all that. I just
and
think
you got
it's
healed.
very-
I mean, I think what it is that they run their offense, their Curryless offense, to the best of their ability, which is not good. But I do think they beat Houston with defense every game. And Houston
and they had Steph
is
Curry.
a good team. Yeah, absolutely. And Steph Curry was vital to a lot of that. But Draymond is a gamer and Butler is a gamer. And I think, I think this team gets after it. I think Steve Kerr is a good coach. I'm not going to.
Who scores?
This is.
I think that they score off turnovers. I think Pods, Jimmy, the guys who run out, Buddy
ever
Hield
scored off
pulls
turnover.
up.
I'm just. It's.
This is this series without Steph, and everyone listening to this will remember this, has become an old school Yankees Twins postseason game with Nick Punto on the Twins, and they have to manufacture bunts and getting guys on base and steal. Like they have to do. So to your question, how do they score? How do they win another game?
They could win another game. I'm struggling to see where the offense comes from, given how dedicated and how effective they were in taking out Buddy Hield, who needs to be that second piece there. If they face guard him and they are able to stay connected to him, how does Buddy Hield go off again?
For sure.
Go into the basket for two? Who else? Jimmy? I mean,
but they're minus 300 for a reason. Like the Warriors are now twice as unlikely to win this series as they were 48 hours ago. But I also know that when it got to 7, Buddy Hield had a slot 3 that looked really good to get it to 4, and they got to 7 because as we've watched all season, and Britt just said it, what Finch said all season, like, I watched this team lose to the Bucks without Giannis and Dame. How did they score? Live ball turnovers. Don't know how to play against the fucking zone. Those types of things.
Kevon Looney putbacks.
Yeah, again, I'm with you
Kevon Looney
on
played
this.
2 minutes and 38
Exactly,
seconds.
a big mistake.
Yeah, the more than 3.5 points on Prize Picks did not go well for Looney, for Kevin. But I do think, again, we're all saying the same thing. This was my take after game 1 is like, Jimmy had a quote post game of like, I guess I can give you 40 if you want, but I like to pass the ball. I don't know if he can give you 40. I think this is going to be a massive struggle, but without Steph, I still think the Golden State Warriors are the smarter team. And I think they're going to do all the little things, and they do have the extra game at home and the crowd and whatever. So I'm with you on like, this is maybe a 5-game series. And if they don't get Steph back, how do the Wolves not close this out? But I think all the little things is what Steve Kerr is going to just try to hammer home. I mean, JJ Redick basically said after each team punched themselves in the face, I trust 5 guys. Steve Kerr basically said, I kind of trust 14 guys, and we're just going to keep throwing them out there.
I think that means he trusts 2.
No, but I also
Draymond
think,
and Jimmy.
but I like, to your point, when JJ Redick did the 5 guys for 24 minutes thing, that was your tell in poker, like they're done. And maybe that's what tonight was when he played 14 guys. Like, okay, you actually don't have anyone, including Kuminga, which might be empty calories, that you trust. But that's how that's my.
And I was the biggest Kuminga fan of the three of us here too. I think that's the path. I'm just saying, if Kuminga is the path to be a secondary primary, a secondary high scoring option or a reliable one that you can get to, I just don't know. What is it that they're going to be able to get to in their offense consistently from an action standpoint now that the Wolves, who are a bit slow, seem to have an understanding of how to defend split actions, how to stay connected, what they want to do against Jimmy.
Okay, but X's and O's are great, and analytics that way is great. Here's what I can tell you. With Jimmy Butler, Golden State had the best defense in the NBA in terms of points allowed per possession. They turned the other team over more than any other team, and they scored more points off turnovers than any other team. They've got a guy in Kevon Looney who is a monster on the offensive glass, especially if the whistle is loose. Rudy's not playing very well. This team is susceptible to what? Turning the ball over, not getting back in transition, not boxing out on the boards. All of a sudden, Golden State's up 7 in the fourth quarter in San Francisco. Ant starts to shoot threes from next level. Julius goes 1-on-4, and they lose by 6.
Hey, I'm not saying that can't happen. I'm saying I don't think that that's more likely to happen than what I'm saying.
Not. I mean, if you're asking us if who do we think is going to win the series right now, I mean, I called the Wolves in 7 was Curry was healthy. So I think it'll be 5 or 6. I think it'll more likely 6 than 5.
We agree. There we go.
Well, but it's going to be a very short podcast if we say, well, figure it out for yourself how the Wolves are going to win this.
No, I'm just saying, I think that is what we're doing. This game showed the limitations that we theorized that they would have without Steph Curry.
Yes, but I think the great thing about the NBA is every game is a clean slate, and the stakes are really high right now. You've still got one guy on the sidelines coaching that has won 4 rings. You've got a center forward who has won 4 rings. And you've got a team going back home. And you've got a Wolves team that has proven to have problems with poise and composure. And right now, Ant is in a slump for whatever reason. We assume logically, and I think correctly, that he'll jump out of it, but maybe not. And, there is a pathway. If the Warriors win a game in San Francisco, it is possible that it will be 2-2 or 3-2 with Curry coming back. And then that's a really interesting thing.
That might come back. I mean, we don't even know.
I'm giving you, I mean, you want to know how the Golden State Warriors would win the series. I'm giving you scenarios by which, and I don't think they're ridiculous scenarios. I think they're plausible scenarios. Do I think they're probable scenarios? No, but I think they're plausible scenarios.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not saying I think it's a 100% chance that they win the next 3.
Right.
In my opinion, that's the most likely outcome for the rest of the series.
Right. I think my plane is boarding soon, so I think we're probably going to wrap this up. But the reason I asked the Ant question of how many good games has he had is because I was just looking at his box scores. I don't think Ant has played well since game 4. And to bring it back to the whole rant we all just 3 combined on, if he gives you a 43-point game in this series, they're just winning that game. Like, I don't even need to know anything else because of everything we just argued about. So I didn't think Ant was that good tonight. I think it is a little weird. It's just 2 games, but he averaged 10 threes a game against the Lakers. He's averaging less than 5 in this series. He's not, to your point, I don't know if it's just, is that how the rhythm starts, or does the rhythm start by getting to the rim? He's not finishing well at all around, but that's another thing of like, if you're Golden State and you're trying to be like, okay, what can we do? If you're the Wolves, it's like, hey, if Ant just plays better, we're winning that game, right? Like, another one tonight that I just want to mention because it was the best performance from the whole playoffs of these 7 games. 40 points from the bench tonight. That's another one where if you just say Saturday night in Golden State, the bench, who is essentially just Nikhil, Dante, and Nas, if those guys combine for 40, they're just going to win that game because you're going to manufacture points with Julius and Ant. Like those guys on a bad night will still get you 40 or whatever. So I'm with you. I mean, again, courage the cowardly dog, but like I'm with you that tonight that's probably how the series should look, right? Like they just can't. The Warriors didn't score in the first 7.5 minutes of the game. They had 11 points, like with a minute left in the first quarter. It's going to be very, very hard for them to score. And the only thing that Chris Finch is probably thinking in the back of his head is that my team constantly gives life to teams that don't deserve it. And that would be how the Warriors steal a game to keep this series going and pray that Steph comes back, is that if the Wolves can show you, just like they did in the first round, of like, hey, we actually can close really well. We fixed our Achilles heel. Another Achilles heel is they just don't have the killer instinct, in my opinion, of a championship team. And if they can put the foot on the throat on Saturday and Monday and say 3-1, then it is completely cooked.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm not trying to do like a hot take or anything. I think there is, I don't know. I mean, maybe it sounds like a fear from you guys that it couldn't be that, but I don't know.
Well, I think the point of a podcast is somebody posits something and I give you my best argument against it.
Yeah.
I do think tonight there was an energy of we got what we wanted from the Warriors, because if it is over, and I do ride with you that it could be over in 5, there is still one legitimate punch coming from the Warriors, and it might actually be a punch. It might not be an offensive performance. But like between Draymond and Jimmy, I don't think they're just going to be out in 5. Like they're going to do one or two things to really mix this up before the ship goes down. But again, from my vantage point, like I thought the Wolves did enough tonight to regain the footing. I think the vibes were really bad yesterday, and people thought like, oh my God, you lost game 1 and you lost it without Steph. And tonight they did enough, while a bunch of guys you could still poke. I mean, we didn't even really get into Rudy, and it's like Rudy hasn't played well in these.
Well,
first
that was my other point of this segment was Ant and Rudy are playing poorly.
Yeah,
and I don't expect either of those things to to sustain. I just think that to me there seems to be a lot more like progression to the mean with this team going forward. I think that's likely to happen. And I struggle to see where the areas that the Warriors could do it. And I do understand the Wolves' biggest opponent is themselves. And I'm saying that all during the season. But what I reflected on in the first round of the playoffs is I do think that element of them beating themselves is largely about Ant, and it's largely about his approach to 20 regular season games a year. I think in the playoffs, what we have learned from his pattern of behavior is that they don't do that. They don't beat themselves in the playoffs. But more recently, there isn't that deflated feeling that you felt against that Milwaukee team, against that Washington team. I think during the regular season, their biggest opponent is themselves. But in the playoffs, provided you're going to get a locked-in version of them, or even a decently locked-in version of them, I think that's more bankable than I would have given it credit for a month ago.
Say it flat out. I think the Wolves will win the series. I was surprised. Kuminga gets 26-23. Gary Payton gets 11-15
minutes. Yeah.
And Kevon Looney gets 2:48. I think Kerr may have been fooling around trying to make combinations, but I think in games 3 and 4, he won't be fooling around anymore. He'll have his combinations, and he will throw those combinations out in a much more organized manner, and we will see a more coherent strategy, I think. And I think it will be essentially to try to make it a rock fight, to make it, it's how they beat Houston. Houston was not as offensively versatile as Minnesota is, and they were young. But I do think you're going to see more of Looney and Peyton and guys who are good at rock fighting. And I just think that defense.
I just don't know why he wouldn't have done that this game. Then, you know, he started Quentin Post, and that was an epically failed adjust. That was the adjustment for this game tonight. And I mean, I don't know, the other like adjustments were more Kuminga, and that you know that worked, but we don't see that. I guess I don't get how they all stack together. And I think I hear what you're saying, and like he's searching for it. But what also might just be happening is it's just desperate.
And what also might be happening is he's a strange guy who seems to have it work. I mean, everybody scratched their head. A game 5, he was up 3-1, you could close out. And he basically said, you know, with his team down like 11 with 8 minutes left or something, he said, nah, that's it, you know.
Well, and I think that's how I end up looking stupid in this whole thing, is if that was what he was doing tonight with some version of mailing it in. I just didn't feel like that's what this was. At the very least, you know, trying to find guys that he could, you know, I think he knows what he'll get from Peyton too. I think he knows what he'll get from Looney. Moses Moody taught him something, which is he should not play.
I thought the lights were really bright for some of those guys.
Yeah.
Like Moody and
Spencer, you know.
And like now that people knew who Pat Spencer was, like it was a different ball game, you know. And
well, and what's crazy is they came in that game 5 and played really well, and Curry just kind of left him in. Again, that kind of this attitude. I'm a believer in great defense being as much of a change agent as great offense. And I think Golden State is a great defense. I do think Curry is an underrated part of that defense, and I don't think they're as good defensively if he's out as well as being offensive.
I think their offense is a big part of that defense. Their offense and their overall functionality of their group post Jimmy trade.
I know what you mean.
I think that's what gave their defense a lot of teeth. I think this one,
for what it's worth, you've sold me, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but also we use this phrase so often, so I just want to look it up. Was like, a rock fight is a physical altercation where individuals throw rocks at each other. We say rock fight all the time, but I think without putting words in your mouth, this is going to be a rock fight, or that's the only way Golden State can win it. But the Wolves have like 5 starting pitchers that throw the rock a lot fucking harder than 5 of us that are, you know what I mean? It's like, even if this is a rock fight, again, like the Wolves have so many other offensive options that if it gets muddy, like tonight, I thought it got muddy a little bit there. The Wolves just have more firepower to, again, it sucks. We should say it sucks that Steph is out, because I think this series would be awesome without him. But I
wouldn't be saying this at all.
I'm with you that it's just, I don't think that Jimmy's done a lot of cool stuff in his career. I don't think that Jimmy bent over the stanchion in the bubble is be able to come back. Like, he's going to do his best in game 3, but he's not going to give you 40. There's only so much they can do. There's a lot of guys on that Warriors team that got a chance tonight that looked, to Britt's point, like Moses Moody took 5 shots and had 4 air balls. That's, how do you trust that in game 3? So I just was curious too, because you were there. I haven't really been there for one of those, but Britt and I watched a lot of Rockets Warriors on the road in game, or in the first round, and like watching that experience. The Draymond experience in person is insane. And again, I don't really like to talk about other teams and their players, but just seeing what he did to Nas with that elbow, and then escalating from there, and watch. I mean, I watch Anthony Edwards, and he gets technicals for staring at guys. I just thought that whole thing was, I can't wait to hear what you guys think about it in Golden State, because he cannot turn it off. Like, that is just part of Draymond's DNA, that he is an instigator. And watching it tonight, and then the fans got into it, that was just an experience that I won't forget.
Like, you think he's going to do it more in Golden State?
I think post game he had a statement about an agenda towards him being. I think he can't turn it off, and if he sees this thing slipping, he's not going to embrace the moment of like, I can't get ejected in this time. He's gotten ejected in the NBA Finals. So I just thought that was a fascinating to see it in person tonight. And it's like, okay, you got teed up. Normally those guys go calm down, and he got hotter to the point where Steph had to come calm him down. I just thought it was a crazy experience to finally be a part of.
Well, he walks the tightrope all the time. And like Pat Bev and Draymond Green are the only two guys I've ever seen that are, in a objectively called NBA game would have like 11 technicals.
Right.
And so when you're out there screaming, that's bullshit, as loud as you can right in the face of the refs,
All three of them.
you are trying to show them up. You are trying to say, I know better about that call that just happened than you do, and I'm not afraid to say it. And because I'm not afraid to say it, and you are afraid to kick me out, I'm right.
I just think, like, again, given how shorthanded they are and the limited weapons they have,
That's why Curry and Jerry Stackhouse and Steve Kerr are basically going, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I just think like sometimes when he gets ejected, it's kind of like, oh, that was a net positive for the Warriors because he took out some other player who is more relevant to the other team. I feel like even strategically does that sometimes. I'm not saying he's better than all the Wolves players. I think you can make an argument that he's more important to this Warriors group right now than
100%.
Almost any of the other Wolves players. So
Absolutely.
Go ahead and get
He's
ejected.
more important than Jimmy Butler is right now. And Jimmy Butler is extremely important to the offense.
I don't know about that.
And there is a real.
I meant more important than the Wolves, the Wolves players.
No, what I'm saying is that I think Draymond Green anchors that defense. And if they're going to win anything, they're going to have an elite defense. And I don't think they can play an elite defense with Draymond Green out. I just don't. I mean, the Heat didn't play elite defense with Bam and Jimmy next to each other. I just don't think Draymond Green had a fantastic year on defense, I thought. And I think he should have been thrown out of this game 7 times. And I'm flabbergasted that it doesn't happen. But I do think that if Kyle is right, and there's certainly a possibility of it, that the next group of refs just won't deal with it. They'll just say, all right, 1, 2, and then that's it. I mean, and that's when, I'll join your side and go, this series is over.
And I will say, I know that's not a basketball thing, but I think it's worth mentioning because you're talking about a team that is down their best player. And I think Draymond is everything that team does defensively. But there's also like a real trend. I remember someone did this on Reddit where Draymond gets ejected more than 3 times as often in games that Steph is not in. So you're looking
That's a good point. Yeah,
you know what I mean? You're looking at these
it.
games now going, and it's like if it gets away from Golden State at home and there's no Steph and he sees it going, like that's something that this team will
Can
have
he control himself?
He will not go quietly.
And if he can't, I will tell you, if he can't control himself as they're going down 2-1 and get suspended for 1 game and Steph is out,
he'll be back at Alcatraz.
Well, it's 3-1.
If he gets 2 more techs
or like 2,
then he's suspended.
Yep.
2. So if you got 2 techs in game,
which is interesting because that could have easily been a flagrant.
Yeah.
And so flagrant 2, no, it could have been a flagrant.
I think it's
1.
a technical because they said because it was a dead ball or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, what is fascinating?
He's tapped in all those loopholes.
Have you seen? I mean, he did this to Sengun as recently as game 4, game 6 or game 7. He basically did the exact same thing he did to Nas. He got fouled and whoop, just all of a sudden that off armor is like, how when your knee gets hit with a hammer and you it's like all of a sudden, Draymond gets hit on one side of his body and that off arm just goes out right towards somebody's jaw. It's funny how that happens.
He's coy.
Yeah.
It's not.
He's 2 technicals away from a suspension or 2 flagrant fouls. So and I think that's why Steve Kerr tonight wasn't like the same kind of having his back. Like post game, he was like, we need him to not do that because we're already down. And again, to our Sisyphus thing last night. Like the Warriors now are pushing this rock uphill, and they can't do it without Draymond. Like they're already down a guy. So
And when I saw first Curry and then Kerr take their chances, and then Draymond kept going, and he ran into Jerry Stackhouse. I remember Jerry Stackhouse was a mean, tough son of a bitch when he was playing, and he looked like he was ready. You know, you want to fight somebody? Here I am. You know, let's do this so you don't get ejected by fighting somebody else. You know, it was just crazy. I mean, when your entire team is saying, "Don't ruin it for us," and he's saying, "Get out of my way," that's not good.
Anything else we missed?
No, I'm excited. I'm not going to San Francisco, but I know you guys are. I think that's going to be a crazy experience because, again, the Warriors have that pedigree, new arena, but game 3 on Saturday, game 4 on Monday. I know you guys will have it covered, and I'll be curious to see if the Wolves can, if they play an A game, you don't really have to tell me anything else. Like if you just said, hey, the Wolves had an A game on Saturday, they won that game. And I'm with you. I'm buying into everything you said.
What if it was B- again?
I think they win that game too. I think if I'm Chris Finch, I'm not saying this, but like I just need my guys to play A or B plus or minus level basketball, and that will be enough to get you through.
They need to avoid the soul-sapping runs that have done. I mean, anybody who's watched 82 games of the regular season knows that they pockmarked the season, and they could be against a terrible team that they thought were going to win from the beginning, or it could be against a good team like Milwaukee that they were up 20 on in the fourth quarter. They let go of the rope, and then they try to get it back. And even as they're trying to get it back, you kind of get the impression they're thinking, all right, I think, you know, we got to pace ourselves to get this back now. You know, I mean, we still have 7 points to go with 3 minutes left, but we can do it.
Did you feel that way in game 1 though? Was that was a little bit of a different feeling though, right? It wasn't.
No, yeah. Well, Golden State. First of all, I think the Wolves are not used to losing because they can't hit a shot. Ever since Ant arrived, I mean, he's found a way. And Mike Conley is a 40% shooter. Dante. I mean, last year you had Cat. You know, I mean. Slow-mo in his own crazy way would either get a bucket himself from inside or engineer a good one. And it was, I mean, historically bad shooting over a 2-game span. But I think that it did rattle them in that first game, especially, I mean, and it also rattles you if Curry is on the other side of that team. And you know, even if you're up like 7 with 2 minutes to go, going to be an interesting final, you know? And so that is, frankly, of all the reasons why Golden State is screwed, it is that they do have to hope that they play one of their best games and that the other team is self-sabotaging.
All right. Which, again,
that's the combination.
Right.
That is the winning combination for Golden State. They play their defensive game, if not to perfection, in a way that gives them runs, gives them that 16-6 we saw in the first 4 minutes, 5 minutes of the third quarter tonight. That happens 2 or 3 times in a game. Right. And the Wolves aren't up for it, that game. Then they steal when Curry comes back. It's 3-2 or 2-2, and Curry does what he did against Houston, you know, and wins game 7 on the road.
Yeah.
Only this time it would be at home.
Part of my whole idea of this is I don't think Curry is going to be back.
Yeah. Well, and then you know, what are we doing here?
Well, that was kind of my
that
was kind of my point. I mean, I was looking for what it is.
I think Curry will come back even if he's terrible, because I don't think he wants to just sit it out. And you know, I don't think it isn't like but it isn't like Kevin McHale's ankle. You know, he never walked the same way again. You know, I mean, I don't think you can permanently wreck your hamstring, can you?
Yeah, you don't want to mess around with a hamstring too much, and then it would be. I mean,
but you have a whole summer to, you know.
Yeah, just
nonetheless. And he's 38.
There's some doctor listening to this right now. Like, you guys just wrap this up.
Yeah.
No, I mean, this tonight was what they did what they had to do. I think Britt and I's hesitation on your confidence is just, how the hell did the Knicks win again last night? You know what I mean? Like, these second round playoff games have been crazy, and there's a lot of, I mean, basketball is so good right now, even on a game.
But don't you feel like with the Knicks, you can be like, okay, these are the pathways for the Knicks to play and
Yeah,
find
for sure.
success. You know, they just have a greater depth of talent and players who are, you would say, are starting caliber players. I don't, particularly if we don't find Jonathan Kuminga to be bankable. I mean, I'm just
Right.
I think just because there's been crazy stuff going on
That's
in
fair.
the other series doesn't have any bearing on the fact that this Warriors team that I came into this series having a lot of respect for is just way undermanned and has tried numerous different ways to try to piece it back together. They had Gary Payton Jr. play in the last game once Curry came out in the second half, and that was problematic. It was supposed to be advantageous against Ant. It wasn't. They decided to play Looney a bunch, and Looney got absolutely cooked by Naz Reid. Okay, so then they go to the third one, and it's Quentin Post, and he starts the game, plays 3 minutes. The Wolves are up 13-0, and then gets pulled and never played again. I mean, there's just these are like ninth men on teams in a good situation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And Pods hasn't given them much, you know. So it's hard for me to see their pathway to do it, but maybe
It is hard.
Yeah.
And it's been universally agreed that it is hard. Defense and the weirdness of the NBA and Golden State's championship pedigree and the Wolves' tendency to spit the bit sometimes turn the odds from 90 to 70. How's that?
Who went to 70?
Wolves win 70% of the odds are the Wolves will win the series.
But it was
Or 80 maybe.
it was
Make
90
80.
before. So what, down?
No, what I'm saying,
Oh.
if all those things, I just named like 6 factors.
Yeah.
If those 6 factors tumble in Golden State's favor.
Oh, it goes down to 70. Okay, I get it. Okay, yeah. So I mean, yeah, I'm at 90 there with you. This was fun. I think we'll see what happens in game 3 here. Obviously, I think we're at the Warriors have a big uphill battle, but the Wolves need to.
It's going to be a
keep
riot
themselves-
if they win.
Yeah. if the Warriors,
I'm taking
That's all
PPO
right.
that night.
That's all right.
They did what they had to do tonight, and now they go on the road and a team that has. I always think back to Portland when Finch said he likes that bunker mentality. I think there's something about this team that likes being on the road. Jaden said it tonight. He's like, I kind of don't like playing at home. He goes, no offense to you guys, but
Jaden had a huge smile on his face. I mean, it was Andrew of
Andrew Carlson.
yeah. Andrew Dirkwitz.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, he said, you said before you like playing on the road. Why is that? Jay goes, I don't know. I just ever since I was in high school, I've always just liked it. Nobody likes you. I just like that. I don't like playing at home. And then he went, oh, I don't want to say that. But it's like Jaden McDaniels likes the fact, he likes to walk around in a black hood and be sullen,
That is
And what that means is that you're on the road, you slip the knife in, and then you leave. No one knows you did it.
He's Britt Robson. He's Kyle Theige. Britt and I will be back for a game 3 immediate reaction pod after that game in San Francisco. Kyle, appreciate you being out here and doing all these pods, and we'll see you.
We'll do more of these.
See you
Give me Saturday off
when you're back. Yeah. All right. So until then, he's Britt. He's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hard so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you